Welcome back to Watchpost Partners. I want to start today with a question. What do you do when the things that used to work in your business just stop working? The strategy that used to bring clients in isn't bringing them in anymore. The team structure that used to work suddenly feels dysfunctional. The revenue that used to feel consistent just isn't consistent anymore. The clients that used to stay are starting to leave. And you keep doing what you've always done, but you're not getting the result that you've always gotten. If you're a business owner, that is an incredibly frustrating place to be because most business owners are problem solvers. That's probably the reason that you became a business owner in the beginning. We see a problem and immediately think, okay, how can I fix this? What needs to change? Who do I need to call? What do I need to spend? What new strategy do I need to try? We fix things. And I want to talk about this today because I have personally walked through a season where things that worked in my business for years just stopped working. And my immediate reaction was to fix the business. But looking back now, I realized that maybe the business wasn't the only thing God was working on. God was actually working on me. And maybe today you're in a similar place. Maybe you don't have a strategy problem. Maybe you have a dependence problem. And I want to unpack what I mean by that, because sometimes God allows what used to work to stop working so that we stop depending on our own process and we start depending on Him. When I started my marketing company, I knew marketing. I knew how to build sites. I knew SEO. I knew how to help businesses get found, and I knew how to bring clients in. And for a long time, that business grew. I had clients, I had systems, I had processes, I knew what worked. And there's something that happens when you've been in business for a while, you just start figuring things out. You become confident. And the confidence isn't a bad thing. Experience surely isn't a bad thing, nor is knowledge. But sometimes, without realizing it, our confidence in God slowly becomes our confidence in our own ability. I know how to do this. I've been through this before. I know what works. I know how to get clients. I know how to fix this. And then you walk into a season where things start changing. We start losing clients, not just one, several clients. I remember looking back at my business and thinking, what is happening? Because what I had always done wasn't fixing it. So I did what business owners do. I looked into my marketing, which is kind of funny when you own a marketing company, to be honest. But I start looking into our services, our pricing, our processes, our clients, the brand. You start looking at everything. And I started asking myself, what am I missing? What am I doing wrong? And what do I need to change? And then I started trying to fix everything. Because when you're a leader and something feels unstable, your natural instinct is to grab onto something, anything you want control. You want to feel like you're doing something, because doing something feels better than just waiting. Can we just be real about that? The waiting is incredibly uncomfortable for business owners. We don't build businesses by sitting still. We make decisions, we solve problems, we move, we execute, we lead. And then God says, wait. We sometimes interpret that as try harder until I give you the answer. That's at least what I did. I kept trying to figure out the business, but the harder that I tried to fix everything, the more frustrated I truly became. And there were moments where I genuinely questioned why I was still doing this. Why am I still in business? Is this even what I'm supposed to be doing anymore? Should I close the doors? Should I sell it? Maybe I should just go get a job. Walking away honestly felt pretty intriguing for me. And I don't think I'm the only business owner who's had those thoughts. Actually, I know that I'm not, because I sit across the table from business owners all the time, and I'm hearing the same thing. I'm tired. I don't know how much longer I can do this. I feel like everything depends on me. My employees have no idea how much pressure I'm under. My family just doesn't understand. I'm making the money, but I'm miserable. Business is going okay, but I'm exhausted. Or one I hear more than you might think. I just want to sell and do something, go work a 9 to 5. And sometimes they don't really want to sell their business. They just want relief. They want someone to take the weight off of their shoulders for just a minute. They want to stop being responsible for every decision, every payroll, employee issue, customer complaint, sales number. Every problem lands on the leader's shoulders. Because here's something that I'm learning about business owners. A lot of us are very good at looking strong. We're the leader. We know people depend on us, our employees, families, customers. So when someone asks, how's business going? What do we say? We always say, good, busy, can't complain. Meanwhile, internally, we're thinking, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And I think there are business owners listening to this right now who know exactly what I'm talking about. You're tired, not even a physical tired, although you probably are that too. You're leadership tired, you're decision tired, you're tired of carrying the weight, you're tired of having to fix everything. You've had to hire someone, you've had to fire someone, you've had to change your marketing, your pricing, you joined a new networking group, you're listening to this podcast, you read a book, you bought the software, you created new systems, and somehow you're still in the same place. So I want to ask you a question that I started asking myself. What if the business isn't actually the problem? What if God is using your business to expose something inside of you? And I know that that's uncomfortable to even think about. Because I would much rather God give me a new marketing strategy. I would much rather God say, Ashley, here's the exact thing that you're doing wrong. Change these 3 things and revenue will be back up. Great, give me a checklist. I'll do it today. But what if God's more interested in changing the leader than changing the revenue? What if he is more interested in your dependence on him than your ability to even solve the problem? What if the very thing you're asking God to remove is the thing that he's using to keep you tethered to him? That's been a huge realization for me. Because when business is good, when clients are coming in, when the bank account looks good and your employees are happy and all the systems are working, how easy is it to just put the business on autopilot spiritually? We might still pray and we're going to church. We may still say that God owns this business, but are we actually depending on him? Or are we depending on the process that he allowed us to build? There's a difference. And that brings me to Habakkuk. Habakkuk chapter 2 has become incredibly important to me and is the foundation for Watchpost Partners. Habakkuk 2:1 says, I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me. I want you to really notice something. Habakkuk doesn't say, I'm going to run around and try 15 different things. He doesn't say, I'm going to panic or I'm going to create a new strategy for 3 days. He says, I'm going to stand at my watch and I'm going to station myself. And I'm going to look and see what God will say to me. There is an intentional posture there, a posture of waiting, watching, and listening. And I wonder how many of us are asking God for direction while we're moving so fast that we couldn't hear him even if he answered us. We're saying, God, show me what to do while we're already doing 10 things. God, give me direction while we've basically already made the decision. God, fix my business while we're grabbing onto every strategy that we can find. And I had to realize I wasn't always standing at the watchpost. Sometimes I was running around the city trying to fix everything myself. And I think God used the hardship of my business to really slow me down and get my attention, to make me ask questions that I probably would have never asked if my business was still growing the way that it was. Because my agency had continued to grow exactly the way that I planned it. I'm not sure that Watchpost Partners would exist today had I not slowed down to listen to what the Lord was telling me. Think about it. The very season that I wanted God to fix was the season that God used to change my vision. I was asking God to restore what I had built, and I believe that God was saying, I want to show you something different. And that's hard because we get attached to what we've built, right? It's our brand. We put all of our effort into it, and all of a sudden we have to change that. The vision, the plan, the revenue, the identity. And we just have to say, God, this business belongs to you. But then God starts moving things around and we're like, wait a second, not like that. You can lead the business, God, but here's the plan we're going to follow. Here's the revenue goal. And God, here are the clients I want to keep. And here's my timeline, but I want you to go ahead and bless this. And I am laughing because I've done just that. I've absolutely done it. I've handed God my plan and call to surrender. But Habakkuk continues in verse 2 and says, and then the Lord replied, write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it. God gives Habakkuk vision. But first, Habakkuk had to get it in a position to hear. Okay, so he had to get in a position to hear. And I think that's the part that we miss. We want Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision down, make it plain, right? Put it on a vision board, build a strategy, let's run. But we skip over Habakkuk 2:1, where it says, stand at your watch, station yourself, listen, watch, wait. Before there was vision, there was position. You hear that? Before there is vision, there is position. And maybe the reason you don't know what to do next in your business is because God isn't asking you to do something yet. Maybe he's asking you to get into position. Maybe he's trying to do something in your heart. Maybe he's trying to expose your need for control. Maybe he's exposing where your identity has become attached to the success of your business. Maybe he's showing you that you don't trust him with the outcome as much as you thought you did. I had to confront all of this myself because when clients started dropping, it really wasn't a revenue problem. Okay? It affected me personally. I started questioning myself. Am I good at this? Did I build the wrong thing? Did I make a mistake? Is this a failure? And that's when you realize how easy it is for your identity to become tangled up within your business. When your business is winning, you feel like you're winning. When the business is struggling, you feel like you're struggling. When the client leaves, we take it personally, don't we? When someone doesn't choose you, you start questioning your own value. And when revenue drops, you start questioning your ability. And God has to start separating those things in you and in me. My business is something that I simply steward. It is not who I am. And I want to say that again because I think business owners need to hear that. Your business is simply something you steward. It is not who you are. The revenue number doesn't determine your value. The number of employees you have doesn't determine your significance. The size of your office doesn't determine your calling. The fact that someone chose a competitor doesn't mean that you failed. And the fact that you're in a hard season doesn't automatically mean that you're outside the will of God. Sometimes we assume that difficulty means that we have made the wrong decision. But throughout Scripture, obedience was not always followed by ease. Sometimes obedience led to difficulty, and difficulty created dependence. Look at the Israelites in the wilderness. God provided manna. But he didn't give them a warehouse full of manna. He gave them what they needed for the day. Why? He wanted them dependent, daily dependence. Jesus teaches us to pray, give us today our daily bread. Daily. I don't like daily. I like quarterly projections, right? I like annual revenue forecasts. I like knowing what's coming. I'm a business owner. I want to see a spreadsheet. But God often teaches dependence one day at a time. And maybe that's where you're at right now. You keep asking God for a 6-month plan, and God's giving you enough light for today. And you're frustrated because you think that you can't see. But maybe God is saying, hey, stay close to me. Because if I showed you everything, you'd run ahead of me. I know that I would. And I think this is why sometimes the thing that used to work stop working. Not because God is punishing us, not because every business challenge is some deeply spiritual event. Sometimes you genuinely need a better strategy. Sometimes the marketing is bad. Sometimes your pricing is wrong, or maybe you hired the wrong person. Sometimes the business is actually a business problem. I'm a business consultant. I believe in strategy, but I also believe that there are moments where we keep trying to apply a business solution to something God is trying to address to the leader. And in no amount of strategy can fix a surrender problem. No CRM can fix your control. No marketing campaign can fix your identity rooted in revenue. No employee can carry the weight that God never asked you to carry in the first place. And that's why I keep coming back to this idea. Business starts with the leader. If the leader's exhausted, eventually the business feels it. If the leader is operating out of fear, eventually decisions start reflecting that. If the leader is desperate, eventually the business starts making desperate decisions. If the leader needs control, the team feels control. If the leader doesn't trust anyone, delegation becomes impossible. If the leader's identity is wrapped up in the business, every problem becomes personal. The business often exposes what's happening in the heart of the leader. And it's not condemnation. It's actually an invitation to say, God, show me. What are you trying to teach me here? What am I holding on too tightly? Where am I depending on my own ability? Where am I trying to force an outcome? Where am I exhausted because I'm carrying something you never asked me to carry? Those are the questions I think more business owners need to ask. Because I sit with business owners, I talk to them, and the theme I'm hearing over and over again is exhaustion. And that's interesting in that most of these businesses are successful. That's what people don't understand. You can have a successful business and still want to quit. You can have the revenue and still be exhausted. You can have employees and feel like you're handling everything alone. You can have the customers and you're still questioning your purpose. From the outside, people see the business. They see the logo, the building, the social media post, employees, and they think, wow, they're doing great. But they don't see the business owner sitting in their car before they walk into the office praying, God, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I've talked to business owners who are tired of managing people. Business owners who feel like they can't take a day off because everything will fall apart. Business owners who are constantly trying to make everybody happy. Their employees, customers, their families. Business owners who haven't really told anyone how overwhelmed they are because they feel like they're supposed to have it all together. And I think that's why this conversation matters. Because maybe you're trying to fix your exhaustion by changing the business. And maybe God wants to talk to the leader. Maybe you're saying, I need better employees, and God's saying, let's talk about how you're leading. Maybe you're saying, I need more clients, and God's saying, let's talk about where you've placed your security. Maybe you're saying, I need more money, and God's saying, let's talk about how you're stewarding. Maybe you're saying, I need control of this, and God's saying, let's talk about trust. And maybe you're saying, I just want to quit. And God's saying, hey, come sit at the Watchpost. Not because he's promising that you have to stay in the business forever. Sometimes God does close a door. Sometimes a season ends. But don't make permanent decisions from a place of exhaustion before you've taken time to hear from God. Don't confuse your being tired for being released. They're not always the same thing. And that is something that I'm learning. There were moments I questioned why I was still in business. And looking back, I can see that God was reshaping my understanding of why I was in business. I thought I owned a marketing company, and God started putting business owners right in front of me. Not just the businesses, though, the people, the leaders, the tired leaders. Business owners carry things that they feel like they can't tell anyone. And I started realizing that maybe the business was never about websites, SEO, and marketing. These are tools and valuable. But God was changing what I could see. And out of a really difficult season came Watchpost Partners, a vision centered around leadership, stewardship, obedience, a place where business owners can actually admit, hey, I'm tired. I'm struggling. I need wisdom. I can't carry this alone. And here's what's crazy. I don't know that I would have seen that vision if everything in my business continued working. I might have been too busy growing the thing that I built. So the thing I was asking God to fix may have actually been the thing He was using to redirect me. And maybe that's why I'm sharing this. Maybe something used to work in your business and it stopped working and you're frustrated and tired. And I'm not telling you to ignore the numbers. I'm not telling you to stop making wise business decisions. And I'm not telling you to sit in your office and pray instead of doing your job. Faithfulness requires action. Stewardship requires wisdom. And before you run to another strategy, can I challenge you to stand at the watch? Habakkuk said, I will stand at my watch and station myself, and I will look to see what He will say to me. What would it look like for you to do that this week? To actually get quiet, to stop asking only, how do I fix this? And change your prayer to, God, what are you trying to show me through this? God, is there something in me that you're trying to refine? Is there an area where I've become dependent on my own ability? Is there something I'm trying to control? Or maybe I've attached my identity to my business? Or God, are you changing the vision? It's a scary prayer because He may answer it. And I can tell you from my own experience, the season where I felt like things were falling apart was also the season God started making the vision clear. Habakkuk 2:3 says, for the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and it will not delay. Though it linger, wait for it. Business owners, we don't like that verse. We like, it will certainly come. We don't like that it will linger. But maybe there's something God is developing in the waiting. Maybe the business isn't behind. Maybe you're being overlooked, or maybe you're not. Maybe God is doing work in the leader before He expands the assignment, expands it. So if what you used to do isn't working anymore, before you panic, before you blow everything up, before you quit from a place of exhaustion, before you grab onto another strategy just because doing something makes you feel in control, go back to the watch post. Stand, watch, listen, and ask God, what are you trying to do through my business? Because you might not have the strategy problem, but you may have the dependence problem. And sometimes God allows what used to work to stop working so we stop depending on the process and start depending on Him. Your business starts with a leader, and that's you. And maybe the breakthrough you're praying for doesn't start with God changing the business. Maybe it starts with allowing God to do a deeper work in you. Thanks for joining me today on Watchpost Partners. I hope this episode challenged you, but more than anything, I hope it gives you permission to get quiet before God and really ask Him what He's doing in this season. Your business is something that you steward. It is not your identity. Stay rooted in Christ. Stay at the watchpost and keep your eyes open for what God might be trying to show you. This is Watchpost Partners, empowering leaders, strengthening businesses, and impacting communities. I'll see you next time.